Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Valley Bible Studies podcast. You know who I am. You know who Luke is.
Hello.
So that's great. If you don't, well, what are you doing? So
we've been doing this a while.
It's been over 2 years. You said that earlier.
That is true.
You said that we were talking earlier, and he goes,
almost 2.5.
Yeah, you go. We've been doing this for 2 years. I was like, oh my goodness, we've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
So that means that you know a lot about us.
For better or worse?
Probably for worse.
Probably.
But with that being said, like, we're movie buffs. We like movies.
That is true.
And so the conversation that we were having before we hit start was if you could go back in time, and this was Luke's idea, actually, by the way.
Thanks.
If you could go back in time and rewatch a movie for the first time, what movie would it be?
Now, I'll say, there are a few that we've agreed upon that are kind of universals.
Right.
Like, everybody is going to want to watch Avengers Endgame again that has anything to do with Marvel.
Specifically for the scene where Captain America gets to wield Mjolnir.
Yes.
Did I say it right?
Mjolnir, yes.
Yeah.
Just because...
And
like,
by the way, spoilers. If you hadn't seen that movie, it's been out for a while.
6 years and it's one of the biggest movies of all time.
That's your fault.
Also, if you had anything to do with any of the movies leading up to it, we were waiting on that for a decade.
Right.
So you would want
that
to
anticipation
see that again.
And,
right.
and Luke and I are pretty nerdy.
That is true.
Correct me if I'm wrong. We went and saw that together, didn't we?
No, that was before we knew each other.
No. We went and saw Spider-Man.
No Way Home.
No Way Home together.
Yeah.
But
so that's a universal,
like the Lord of the
Rings, Harry Potter, Star Wars. All of the big franchises are going to be somewhat universal if you have any investment in them.
And so
all.
what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to pick like a couple of unique ones that personally we would love to like see again for the first time.
So this is my first one. One of my favorite movies of all time, a candidate for one of the greatest movies of all time, A Few Good Men. If you haven't seen that movie, first of all,
I'm on that list. I haven't seen it.
Stacked cast.
Yeah.
You've never seen A Few Good Men?
Okay, first of all, back off.
Whoa. The whole movie is phenomenal, but specifically the monologue of Jack Nicholson, You Can't Handle the Truth. I obsess over that monologue specifically, and to go back and experience that again for the first time would be so cool. Like, to get to everything that he says is so perfect. He gets into the character further than I've seen almost anyone get into a character ever. It's just so good. You can't recreate that magic again.
Yeah. My first is going to be Goodfellas. And obviously,
fantastic pick.
This is one of those like viewer discretion advised kind of movies. And we can have a whole, biblical conversation about whether it should be watched or not. But I think that's outside the fact. It's because it's one of those stories of like you see him grow up.
Yep.
And you see why he wants to be in the crowd that he's in.
Yep.
And then like you get to see the inside of it.
Robert De Niro, Ray Liotta, Joe Pesci are the big three.
That's just...
And all three of them kill it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to see the arcs of all three of those characters and how it ends up, that's one of my all-time
Absolutely
favorites.
Fair.
Yeah.
The other one that I kind of had in my mind was, and now it just immediately left my mind. What was the other one that I had? Shoot. Do your second one, and I'll try and remember.
So my second one...
Oh, okay, I got it.
Never mind. I'll just
go
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I want to hear it.
It's fine. It's fine.
Your pea brain's going to forget it again. Go ahead.
That's probably true. The Patriot. Mel
That
Gibson,
was your second one?
That was my second one.
No way.
100%. Because, like...
It wasn't originally.
There are few things that get me that patriotic anymore.
True.
And, like, you watch The Patriot, and at the end of it, you're like, the United States is the greatest country in the history of the world.
True.
Like, we're unparalleled, and that guy just proved all of why.
Okay.
I love that movie.
Okay.
Emotional.
It is,
invested.
Man. Dude, what's the villain's name in real life? He plays
he's Lucius Malfoy in Harry Potter. I don't remember the guy's
name. He's such a good bad guy.
He's Cornwallis's like
right-hand man guy. Yeah. And he plays that so well. You hate him so much by the end of that movie.
Tell me about Ohio.
Yeah. Oh. So good.
Right.
My second one is, and I think I'm going to get a lot of like amens on this one, Gladiator.
Are you not entertained?
My name is Marcus. What is it? Marcus what?
Marcus Decimus Meridius.
Marcus Decimus Meridius.
Maximus Decimus Meridius.
Maximus. Oh, yeah, Marcus. Yeah. Maximus Decimus Meridius. What is General or... Yeah, I probably should have looked up
Probably,
the
we
words
should have read this. But it ends with,
to the true emperor.
and I will have my revenge in this life or the next.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, and like the
And
whole thing with
Joaquin
his
Phoenix is
the
Commodus.
whole thing with his family.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
And the symbolism
don't get me
going
wrong.
back and forth.
Historically
between his two
inaccurate,
lives.
but
Oh,
great
not even
movie.
close, but fantastic movie.
Yeah. Oh,
We could have this conversation for a long time.
and like we even started looking through some of them, like Shawshank Redemption.
Yep.
Dude, that's up there.
Yep.
The Godfather, The Dark Knight.
Yep.
Oh, that's such a good one. Only movie I've ever seen Liam Neeson be a bad guy.
Citizen Kane. No, he's in Batman Begins. Dark Knight is
Oh, Joker. Duh,
Yeah.
my bad. And then Forrest Gump.
honestly,
dude,
like
Forrest Gump will be up there for me.
Forrest Gump's up there. Honestly, some of the classics like
Ooh, The Matrix.
Back to the Future, The Matrix.
I'm just kind of going through a
Jaws.
list of like the top movies ever. Saving Private Ryan.
Yep.
That was your second one,
Mhm.
wasn't it?
That's right. That was another one that I
Yeah.
thought of. Anyway,
Um,
we could have this conversation. We could do 45 minutes on just this.
let me say one more.
Okay.
Life is Beautiful.
That's a fantastic.
As a history teacher, I always recommend this, especially once we get to World War II. It's about an Italian family that's Jewish. The whole movie's in Italian, by the way. And their family gets split up. It shows you the concentration camps. But the thing is, they have a little son.
Mhm.
And the plot of the movie is basically dad trying to shelter the son from the
Protect him from the horrors of what's going
while
on.
making everything still seem light and fun. Like he makes games out of like
Yep.
weird things. It is such a good movie.
Fun fact, I get to actually say something good about the Pope. Pope Leo, like right after he became the Pope, did his Letterboxd 4 favorites, which if you don't know what Letterboxd is, it's basically a social media dedicated to movies. And their signature thing is, what are your 4 favorite films? And one of his 4 favorites was Life is Beautiful. So, props to the Pope on that specifically. Don't clip that. But props to the Pope on Life is Beautiful being a good movie.
That's the one thing we post on our social medias.
Props to the Pope. Right. Anyway, we could do a whole episode on that. We're not going to do that. This episode and the series that we're starting is actually the result of a request that was made.
Why did I think you were about to say this episode is brought to you by
It's brought to you by the Pope and his love of Life is Beautiful.
props to the Pope.
Yeah, no, not really. So this series has actually been requested by a couple of different people, but we started the pod by doing a series that goes through the books of the New Testament, right? And that lasted a year. So what we're going to do next is a series on the prophets, and specifically we're going to start with the major prophets and maybe go into some of the minor prophets. Okay. Maybe go into some of the minor prophets as the series goes along. But that means that we're going in order of how they appear in the Bible. So the first of the major prophets and
Major prophets.
the one that is arguably, you can make an argument a couple different ways, but arguably the most directly tied into Christianity, because all of the prophets are Old Testament, right? This is the Jewish system, the law of Moses that came before Jesus. All of those fall under that. So the first one of those, the one that's most directly tied to Christianity, is the book of Isaiah. Isaiah was, well, you're going to do historical background, right? So give us a rundown of, as Mr. History Teacher, the history behind and surrounding the book of Isaiah.
So, kind of all the things that are happening at this time, or at least based around Isaiah. His ministry dates, so we're talking BC, and as a historian, especially in the modern age, we go BCE and CE. BCE being before Common Era, CE being Common Era. Call it what you want. Like AD is how do you pronounce it? Anno Domini.
Anno Domini.
Anno Domini, yeah. And it which literally just means in the year of our Lord, pretty much, right? So
it's the same counting system.
it is.
regardless
It's
of
the
how you
same
name
numbers. So we're going BCE about 740 to 680. So those are like the years in which he is performing his ministry. So the kings that are around, Uzziah, is it Jotham?
I don't know.
I think it's Jotham.
Pick one.
We weren't there. Ahaz and Hezekiah.
Now Hezekiah is a big
So
name.
that's
going to
be yes.
Old Testament history. Hezekiah is
That's the important one.
the best king post David. Like if you go from David to the end with the captivity to Babylon, Hezekiah is the head and shoulders above the rest in terms of trying to turn the nations back to God.
Right. And so kind of building off of that, the people that are in power during this time are going to be the Assyrians. So the Assyrian Empire has kind of built up, coming from northwest or northeast-ish.
Northeast, yeah.
And then Israel, which was the northern kingdom, in 722 collapsed. All right, so that's one thing to keep in mind. So at this point, Judah is kind of facing political pressure. The morale is starting to decline, and then spiritual corruption is also a plot point in this as well. And so Isaiah is one of those guys that's going to warn them of judgment, right? And that's kind of the whole theme of what we're going to be talking. One of the big things of what we're going to be talking about. But in that, he's also talking about that promise, right? The restoration that's going to be established. And so those are some of those themes. And then we kind of get into the structure of the book of Isaiah. And so it's kind of split up into two.
Yeah, Isaiah is basically a double book. You can actually, and some scholars have done this,
Thematically, at least.
Thematically, you can parallel it to the Bible. So Isaiah's 66 chapters, and obviously the chapters are not original to Isaiah, right? Chapters and verses of all of the Bible books were added much later than they were actually written. But Isaiah's 66 chapters, you can roughly divide that into 39 and 27, like the Bible divides into 39 books and 27 books, Old and New Testament. And the 39 first chapters of Isaiah, broadly speaking, are the message of judgment. If we don't turn this ship around, things are going to go very badly very quickly. And he takes some asides. He talks about Assyria. He talks about the northern kingdom of Israel, because, again, first few years that Isaiah is on the scene, Israel is in the process of falling, and he talks about that. But the main theme is, Judah, you've got to get your act together before this entirely falls apart. Chapters 40 through 66, so the 27 after that, broadly speaking, are a message of hope. Here's what happens when we get things figured out, and even more than that, here's what happens to the remnant that's going to survive even after the collapse happens.
Well, and he even talks about like the sovereignty of God in chapters
Right.
40 through 48. He talks about the servant. He talks about the salvation. He talks about like we said, the restoration and the new creation itself.
So that's the big thing in the second part. And again, this is broadly speaking. There's messages of hope in the first 39. There's messages of judgment in the last 27, right? There's overlap. But the other thing that's true, especially going from 41 on, there's a lot of what's called messianic prophecies in Isaiah.
Yeah.
Isaiah is sometimes called the prophet of the Messiah because he talks more about the Messiah than any of the others. So Messiah is a word that means anointed. It comes from the Hebrew word. It's the participle, if you want to get grammatically correct, of the Hebrew verb that means to anoint. So the Messiah is the anointed one. And this is the word that into Hebrew, from Hebrew into Greek, translates to Christos, which is where we get Christ from. So the Hebrews would have called this person the Messiah, the Greeks would have called this person the Christ, and we know that to be Jesus. So Isaiah is the Old Testament prophet, hundreds of years before Jesus is born, who talks more about Jesus in the guise sort of talking in language of the Messiah than any of the other prophets of the Old Testament. So there's a lot of that in the second half of Isaiah as well.
And so I don't know about you, but I mean, the first thing that I want to get into is kind of the, more or less the themes.
Yeah.
So like initially we start out about God's holiness, or Like Isaiah 6, God is holy, holy, holy.
Yeah, so Isaiah 6 is Isaiah's calling as a prophet.
Right.
He goes into the throne room of God, and he sees angels, and he sees the altar before God's throne, and the angels are saying, holy, holy, holy. And Isaiah's immediate response is, I'm toast, because I come from a people of unclean lips, I'm a man of unclean lips, I shouldn't be in the presence of holy God. And one of the angels takes a coal from the altar, touches it to Isaiah's mouth, and he says, this has purified you. You can now exist here, right? Like your sins are atoned for.
Right.
God then says, who's going to go for us? Who will I send with this message to Judah? And Isaiah 6 verse 8 says, hey, I'm here. I'll go. And God immediately, notice that God doesn't question that, right? Isaiah says, hello, I'll go. And God says, okay, you're in charge. And gives him the message and is like, all right, go. God doesn't question devotion when he knows devotion is true.
Yeah. Well,
God's not going to, if you're genuine in your desire to sign up for God's message, God is not going to be the one that is causing doubt in you. Could somebody be causing doubt in you? Yes, but it's not going to be God.
Right.
If you're signing up, God's going to want you.
Yeah. And let's think about some of the things that Isaiah had to like fight against, that he had to rebel against. You know, idolatry, social injustice,
political corruption,
religious practices that were occurring but really weren't doing anything. They were kind of empty. You know,
invading armies. And the threat of invading armies.
All I'm going to say is this is kind of sounding applicable. Just a little. And then he gets into, you know, about the salvation, the redemption. God is promising that through his Messiah and through the grace from that, right? And then kind of wrapping up the Messiah being the last thematic point of all this, saying that it's very clear. It's so clear that he's talking about Jesus himself. And I don't understand how that could be misinterpreted. If somebody wants to try to misinterpret it for me, go for it. But otherwise, you know, so initially, like Isaiah
7:14.
Yeah. It is
Emmanuel. That's where he says, so...
Isn't that talking about the virgin birth?
Yeah.
Okay,
the virgin shall conceive and bear a son. So this is a good example of... This is an example I've used with the kids in our youth group to talk about what I refer to as Old Testament doublespeak. So often in the prophets, and this is a good precedent to set going into this whole series, often in the prophets, multiple things are being said at the same time. For example, the context of Isaiah 7:14 is that there's currently a war going on between Judah and the northern kingdom of Israel, who are also getting help from Syria, right? So the king of Judah, who is Ahaz at the time, calls Isaiah and says, I need you to prophesy that we're going to win, because I want to justify the fact that I'm in this war, and I want Yahweh on my side. He doesn't actually believe that Yahweh's on his side, but he wants a political justification for what he's doing. So Isaiah says, no, but I'm going to give you a sign
what
anyway.
I can give you.
So actually what happens is Isaiah says, would you ask for a sign from God? And Ahaz says, I mean, not particularly. I kind of just want you to justify this. Like, if you've got a miracle in the bag, sure, but I really just want to do what I'm doing. And Isaiah says, okay, the Lord's going to give you a sign anyways. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and you'll call his name Emmanuel. So two things are happening there. Number one, he says before he has learned to decide between good and evil, these kings are going to be gone. So the number one layer that's going on is in the time that it takes a young woman to get married, conceive, have a child, and that child to grow up old enough to know the difference between right and wrong, God's going to take care of your Israel and Syria problem. You don't have to fight them right now, but in the time that it takes for all of that to happen, so you're talking what, like 7-8 years? Yeah. In that length of time, the problem's going to be over. And that happens because it's within 7-8 years that Israel and Syria have both turned to deal with the Assyria problem as they come in and wipe them out.
Because that was the bigger problem.
That's the bigger problem, right. There's bigger fish. So that happens. But at the same time as he's saying that, Isaiah is also saying what Matthew interprets it to mean in Matthew chapter 1, talking about Jesus, right? The Immaculate Conception, the virgin is going to conceive by the power of God and have a child that you're going to name Emmanuel, which means God with us. So, Old Testament doublespeak. He's addressing the situation that he's in. He's also pointing forward to a future situation where God's going to work. There are a lot of examples of that, but that's a really easy one.
Also, fun fact, historically and educationally and academically speaking, accurately speaking, Jesus was born nowhere around December. Like,
that is true.
Like, if anything, it was like late spring, like Mayish.
Why would the shepherds have sheep in the field in the middle of winter?
It just, like, if you go back and actually look at all the different clues, like context clues and just common knowledge, it wasn't in December.
No.
So, love the holiday for non-religious purposes.
A lot of peppermint, a lot of chocolate.
I don't like those two things together.
That's odd of you, and you're wrong, and you should change your mind. Anyway,
I'll fight you.
I know you will. Anyway, back to the prophecies about Jesus. So you've made this point that there are multiple prophecies about Jesus that you can stack up, and you say, like, there's no way this isn't about this guy.
Right.
The next one that I think of is Isaiah chapter 11. So Isaiah chapter 11 is the prophecy of the branch.
Like the peaceful rain?
Yeah. So Isaiah 11 is a root shall come forth from Jesse and a branch from David. And when that happens, he uses several different metaphors for the same idea, but he says, like, the wolf will lie down with the lamb. The lion will lie down with the ox. I'm probably mixing a couple of those.
You read it and you're like...
The point is, these things should not exist in peace with each other. Right? He says, like, a child will stick its hand into a serpent's hole and not get bit. Like, this is unnaturally peaceful coexistence within nature. And he says that's what the nations are going to be like when the branch of David comes. Well,
and so it's almost it's a really cool parallel to the very end of Isaiah, like 65 and 66, about the new heavens and the new earth and like what that looks like. And so that kind of connects it to that,
right,
of everything being at peace because the one who is in charge is the one that's setting the precedent.
Right. So you think about, like, what's Jesus's message? Jesus's message is a message of love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you and do unto others the way that you'd have them do unto you. And the Good Samaritan. Good Samaritan should not help the guy on the side of the road. By all human logic, that interaction doesn't happen. Jesus says it happens because that's what the love of God looks like.
Yeah.
You think about, like, the extent to which God is retying humanity to each other. We use this metaphor sometimes in marriage where it's a pyramid and the man is on this corner and the woman is on this corner and God is at the top. What's going to happen when both man and wife are getting closer to God? They're going to get closer to each other. We use that image in marriage context, but it's also true just of people that Jesus brings together. As I'm striving to get towards God, and as you're striving to get towards God, we're going to be unified. And the prophecy of Isaiah is that's going to happen more profoundly than you think, more profoundly than even makes sense.
So, another thing I want to point out, so in Isaiah 28 through like 35,
okay,
the things that are the warnings, like the, condemning false leadership, those that, got in charge in a certain way or whatever, hold certain authorities. Who are they governing over, and how are they doing it? Be aware of those false leaders. And so trusting God, that call to trust God. And then also kind of going just a little bit after chapter 35, like you were mentioning it, the Assyrians invading, right? How does Hezekiah respond to it?
He doesn't back down.
He doesn't, but why?
Because God's on his side.
Because he trusts God. He knows that as long as he knows that he's the one in charge, he's the one that really controls all, the Assyrians can come all they want. They can march all they want. Because and like you said, he's not going to back down from it.
Right.
You know? God then delivers Jerusalem, right? And then
he delivers Hezekiah. Hezekiah has the sickness, and God through Isaiah gives him 15 more years.
Right. And then you actually mentioned it, I think, before we started recording, about the Babylonians.
Yeah.
Right, the Babylonian Empire, the envoys, that foreshadows exile.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then we get into the comfort. You know, God's sovereignty.
Yeah, so 40 is where it turns. So
right.
I think it's 36 through 39 that are historical.
Yes,
takes a break.
It's
from
that
the
like
poetry,
historical
and
narrative.
It's paralleled with the Kings.
It kind of just makes it match a little bit, but
right. Yeah. And then 40 you turn, and you're talking now about the redemption that's coming. So 40, first couple verses of chapter 40 is the most like John the Baptist quotes this about himself, where he says, "The voice of one crying in the wilderness, make straight the ways of the Lord." That's the beginning of the message. So you can look at the progression of the message of comfort that is coming from Isaiah, and it mirrors the progression of the message that is coming in the New Testament. John the Baptist comes first. He's the voice crying in the wilderness, make straight the paths of the Lord, and then from there you get into the Messiah and the redemption that the servant's going to bring.
Yeah.
Which culminates in chapter 53.
Yes.
Chapter 53 is... This is like all-time number one, there's no way that the Messiah wasn't Jesus.
Because it's foreshadowing the suffering.
It's like scarily accurate depiction of the cross.
Like you have it kind of like frustrates me a little bit.
Uh-huh.
You have the virgin birth, you have the service, and you have the sacrifice. Mm-hmm. Isaiah foreshadows all of that.
And the peace and the comfort and the redemption and the answer to political corruption and like all of it.
It foreshadows all of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way it doesn't make sense.
Right. Especially when the gospel writers are at pains to make that point. Like, I don't remember what order they're in, but it's Deuteronomy, Psalms, and Isaiah that are the three most quoted Old Testament books in the New Testament. So the gospel writers are like tripping over themselves. And Jesus quotes it about himself. So there's, after some of the parables in Matthew chapter 13, he says, "Seeing they may see and not perceive, and hearing they may hear and not understand, lest they repent and turn with their hearts and hear, and I would heal them." Right? What's he quoting there? It's Isaiah chapter 6. It's right after Isaiah says, "All right, I'm in." That's the message that God gives him in like the next couple of verses in Isaiah chapter 6. The seeing you're not going to see, hearing you're not going to understand. That's what Jesus is quoting. They're at pains to connect this to Jesus. It's all about him.
Well, and that was kind of the whole point of Isaiah, a good chunk of the Old Testament itself is the connection, the understanding, and the fact that it is the prophecy fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
He
does the same thing in Luke chapter 4. He goes back to Isaiah 61. "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he's appointed me to deliver good news to the captives." And he goes through that whole chunk, and he sits down, and everybody's waiting for his interpretation of the passage, and all he says is, "Today the scripture is fulfilled in your hearing."
Yeah.
Like,
how crazy.
I got that.
Yeah.
Like, and they're all thinking like, huh? But he did. Like, that's what he came to do, and he did it perfectly throughout his entire life. How you go through it and you don't make the connection is wild.
Yeah.
But anyway, the themes of Isaiah: judgment and hope. Judgment for those who don't turn, don't perceive and understand and make the effort. Hope for those who do. Hope for those who put all of their weight into the Messiah, because he's the coming deliverer. That's kind of the message of the entire Bible.
I was going to say, I feel like that's the message that we spread today.
Right.
So, I like where we're going with this. I like the fact that, and I don't know who brought it up. You can shout them out if you want to, but
several people.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So thank you to those who listen.
Hi.
And
Thanks.
two, for the fact that you actually want more things to listen to, and so it's nice that people are engaged. It's nice that hopefully we can answer some questions and give a little insight to certain things that people want insight to.
Let's just this is absolutely skimming the surface.
Oh yeah.
The longest book that we've covered up to this point is, I think, technically the Gospel of Luke, which has 24 chapters, and this one has 66.
Right.
So we're definitely
skimming.
hitting the highlights. Ask us your follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Send them in, and we will do our best, because it's a long book that was written a really long time ago. But
Yeah.
we'll do our best.
So again, thank you so much for being with us today, or tomorrow, or whenever you finish listening to this.
2 years from now.
I don't know about you, but I'm to the point in life where if I'm listening to something that's longer than 20 minutes, I have to
takes
do
a
it.
minute.
I got to do it in segments. Like if I'm watching a show or a movie, I'm not doing it in one day.
So
It's not happening.
I just finished the Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis on audiobook. That took me like a month, because I'm listening to 15 minutes at a time.
Right. Yeah. But bottom line, we appreciate you. It's what helps us get in here at at 10:39 at night, because
we both have jobs.
But we love it. We love you, and we enjoy doing this, and we like each other for the most part.
Okay. We tolerate each other for the most part.
See you next time.
Bye.
Take care.